Psalm 36. Transgression speaks to the wicked deep in his heart. There is no fear of God before his eyes, for he flatters himself in his own eyes that his iniquities cannot be found out and hated. The words of his mouth are trouble and deceit, for he has ceased to act wisely and to do good, for he plots trouble while on his bed. He sets himself in a way that is not good. He does not reject evil. Your steadfast love, O Lord, extends to the heavens, your faithfulness to the clouds. Your righteousness is like the mountains of God. Your judgments are like the great deep. Man and beast you save, O Lord. How precious is your steadfast love, O God. The children of mankind take refuge in the shadow of your wings. They feast on the abundance of your house, and you give them drink from the river of your delights. For with you is the fountain of life. In your light do we see light. O continue your steadfast love to those who know you, and your righteousness to the upright of heart. Let not the foot of arrogance come upon me, nor the hand of the wicked drive me away. There the evildoers lie fallen. They are thrust down, unable to rise. This psalm begins by painting a picture, actually a rather telling picture, of the nature of wickedness. What does wickedness do? What does it look like? What does it sound like in the hearts of men? And then it turns, and rather than contrasting kind of the hearts and the lives of wicked men over against the hearts and the lives of righteous men, it actually does something stunning and beautiful, and actually teaches us, what do we do when we see, when we behold, when we encounter wickedness, wicked, evil men who do things that should be hated? Where do we look in that moment? And I want us to draw attention to just a couple of things in terms of how, in these first 4 verses, how wickedness actually works in the human heart. And the main thing I want us to kind of root all of this in this psalm is verse 1. He says, transgression speaks to the wicked deep in his heart. I find on the whole that we as human beings, particularly in our day and age, and particularly in the West, are far too prone to trust our own hearts. It's interesting here, and actually it's a theme that Jesus takes up in the Gospels as well. Evil is not something that comes from the outside. It's not something that infects us, as though we're kind of clean and pure with pure hearts and pure emotions and pure motivations and desires that then get corrupted over time. This is actually the predominant worldview in the West, is that the heart is born neutral, that the mind is born neutral, and then through the injuries caused, through pain caused, through our upbringing, through our parents, through things that happen to us, though our hearts get twisted and begin to do things that are broken. But that's not how the psalmist describes the human heart. What he says here is that transgression speaks to the wicked deep in his own heart. Evil doesn't come to us from the outside. It doesn't distort us from the outside. As Jesus says, but we're not made unclean by things that we put into us. Rather, uncleanness arises from within. You see, transgression speaks from within. We're far too trusting of our own desires. We're far too trusting of our own motivations. We're far too trusting of our own emotions and feelings. This psalm actually calls us to examine our own feelings, to examine the voice that arises in our own heart. Because you see, the way wickedness works is it speaks to us from within, and then it begins to shape and color and distort the way that we see everything around us, to the point that we refuse to fear God and we refuse to reject evil. Now, what do you do when you see evil like this? When you encounter men who are evil or women who are evil, when you see wickedness all around you and you see it running rampant. Yesterday, a video was released of a shooting that took place a few months ago in Georgia. 2 men shot a man who was jogging, trying by their claim, trying to do some sort of citizen's arrest. But in the end, it's just murder, cold-blooded murder. Even the way they tell the story sounds distorted, like something's speaking from within. When you see a video like that, where do you look? You don't go and try to find the other righteous man. You don't go and try to find, at least here in this psalm, the one who does good. In here, you certainly don't look within to find goodness within yourself. Now, I think the psalmist actually has a word for us, even in this particular moment, wherever you are, and even whatever season you find yourself in. When you encounter evil, where do you look? The psalmist demonstrates for us what it looks like to look to God, to behold His righteousness, His justice, the depths of His judgments. And where do you go to find it? I would argue that in addition to the Scriptures, the psalmist, particularly in verse 5 and 6, listen to where he says to go. But where do we go to discover God's steadfast love? One place he calls us to go and look is to go outside and behold the heavens. Well, tonight, go outside and see the stars if you can. Look up into the heavens. As you do so, you shouldn't just see a pretty night sky. You should see there the extent of, the heights of, the covenant love of God. Go and see the clouds, maybe this afternoon. Go look at clouds racing across the sky. When you see those clouds and you see the height of those clouds, you shouldn't just see like, oh, look, there's one that looks like a dog. No, see in that the actual faithfulness of God, the heights of God's faithfulness. Go and look at the mountains. Living in Colorado, we go out and just look west. Don't just see majesty and beauty and geological formations. No, see the righteousness, the justice of God, how it is absolutely unshakable, even in the face of human evil and human wickedness. And I love going to the oceans. To just stand and be overwhelmed by the depths that surround you. When you do so, don't just hear the nice, relaxing waves hitting the beach. No, consider the judgments of God. Judgments that will go all the way down. When you see and you consider the depths of the sea, consider the judgments of God Himself. Don't look to men for righteousness. Don't ignore evil and wickedness when it surrounds you, when it is encountered, whether online or in your own life. No, but when you encounter it, look to God. See His steadfast love. See His care for His people. See His righteousness, His judgments, His provision. Stand in awe of who He is in all of His majesty, in all of His glory, in all of His love. And consider the judgments of God.